Hello, hello. So I was watching this video the other day on YouTube with the title An Ex-Feminist Perspective on Relationships and Childless Women with Darleen Lev, that's the lady on the left, from the channel The Radical Center. And that was a very interesting discussion. Check it out whenever you have the time. But for today, let's discuss a short 2 or 3 minute segment which I found to be quite intriguing. Let's go.
Which kind of brings me back to my beef about education. I went when I was in college, so this would have been in like maybe 2005 or 6. I went to a lecture by a guy, I can't remember the guy's name. He was an author. He wrote a book called The World Without Us. And this was are you familiar with this?
James Kunstler. Yeah.
Okay.
So the lecturer was the author of the book The World Without Us. Who is us, by the way? Well, by us he means us humans. I've read the summary of the book and it essentially is about how Earth would heal itself after we are gone. So humanity is like a plague on this planet, and once we are gone it will be able to heal and once again become the paradise that it used to be before our existence. Okay, let's see what these anti-humanists came up with in order to keep us childless.
And I went to this lecture and I was really steeped in the idea that we've overpopulated, humans are destroying the planet.
Sorry, I had to interrupt again. So the year was 2005 or 6, that's just about 20 years ago, and they were still pushing the overpopulation narrative. That was the prevalent narrative. However, by that point, fertility rate was already below replacement level for the US and the Western and Westernized countries. And the trend was very clear. Fertility rate only kept dropping. So, despite the fact that it was crystal clear that we had already moved into a shrinking population era with an accelerating decline, they completely ignored reality and kept pushing the overpopulation myth.
And one of the things that he put forth in that lecture, one of his big pieces of hope was that we can turn overpopulation around and we know how to do it. We just have to focus on educating women. Because if you educate women, they will put off childbearing. And so there was this big push that this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to engineer a better world by making sure that women are attaining postgraduate degrees in greater numbers, that they're going at least through university, so that we can get them to stop having children so young. By the time they start having children, some of them won't be able to anymore by the time they want to, and others won't be able to have as many. So we'll really curtail the birth rate.
Okay, I don't often use spiritual terms, but if that's not evil, I don't know what is. So, in order to keep us childless, they engineered a system which would keep us busy throughout our youth, our most fertile years, pursuing higher education, degrees, careers, in order to ensure that many of us would never make it into parenthood, and that those who did make it would have fewer children. So that was the plan. That's how they tricked many millions of people around the world into involuntary childlessness. And of course, they keep doing it, since it turned out to be a super successful depopulation strategy. But of course, in the meantime, the sacrificial lambs, that's millions upon millions of people around the globe, would end up living lives of silent grief for the children that they always wanted and could have, but eventually would never have. That's the sacrifice the decision makers decided to make.
And if you are dealing with overpopulation, maybe that's a better way to do it than a one-child policy or some other ways that people have socially engineered. But the thing is, with social engineering, there are always going to be unintended effects. Whenever you're trying to decide for someone else that I'm going to look into your life, which is very intricate and complex, and I'm just going to nudge one variable because I see that as the variable that I should be manipulating. You don't know how many other systems are connected to that one variable. And when you do that across a population, you create all kinds of interesting and unforeseen downstream effects of your one manipulation.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the one child policy, but also, and I had another thought. God, I lost it. The one child policy, I mainly was teaching Chinese nationals, and it came up in class. This student was saying something about the one child policy. I said, well, what's interesting is that it was forced on you, but propaganda convinced us to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's an epiphany moment here. So, in China, they enforced the one-child policy upon their people in order to achieve depopulation, while in the West, they achieved depopulation by using social engineering and propaganda, keeping at the same time the illusion of free will and free choice. Brilliant. Okay, let's not expand any further in this video, although we could. That was a bit heavy and depressing, but we have to know what we are up against in order to overcome the obstacles and avoid the traps. Unfortunately, at this point, the people who manage to have children don't do so because let's call it the system, is helping and supporting and channeling them towards parenthood, but they do so despite the system doing everything within its power to keep them childless. So the default settings have changed, and if you want to create your own family at some point, you have to take ownership of your life and act intentionally. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care. Bye.